Hey folks, Brett the Bee Man here. Just wanted to come to you live from Herb Guy's Honey House and talk to you specifically about bee pollen. So I'm going to show you what pollen is, I'm going to read about it, and I'm going to introduce you to the traps. So bee pollen contains the male reproductive material of higher plants. It is therefore a very highly concentrated source of nutrients. In fact, the nutritional composition of pollen is similar to a combination of dried legumes and nutritional yeast. Very specifically, it is 12 to 35% protein, and of course it depends on what flowers they're working, and it contains the complete spectrum of amino acids. Pollen contains every vitamin known to science. I always like to repeat that. I always like to read from books to show that you can trace the source in terms of the scientific research in that. So the book I'm reading from is called Health and Healing with Bee Products. It's in Alive Books, and it was done by C. Lee Broadhurst, and I think it was her PhD research work. So pollen contains every vitamin known to science. It is particularly rich in pantothenic acid, which is B5, nicotinic acid, B3, and riboflavin, which is B2. It contains a lot of all of the B complex vitamins, and contains vitamin C, calcium, copper, iron, magnesium, potassium, and manganese, as well as more than 25 trace elements, which amount to approximately 2 to 4% of the dry weight of pollen. This list includes every trace element that's known to be essential for mammals. The only thing this book says is to take note, B12 and vitamin D are quite low in bee pollen, and therefore it should not be considered an adequate source for these vitamins, whether for humans, dogs, cats, vegan diets, and so forth. So I'll let you guys study more in depth the nutritional aspects. You can go to any university, agriculture university, and find out their PhD research on it. For example, Guelph in Ontario, University of Guelph. So traditionally, in terms of the medicinal properties that pollen can contribute, very particularly it can be used to help alleviate allergies, fatigue because of the B complex and multiple vitamins and nutrients in it, high cholesterol and triglycerides, infertility, impotence, varicose veins, recovery from illness and surgery, prostatitis, and certain types of cancer. Again, you can research that on your own more specifically for those of you that are interested. So I went out to a pollen trap just a few moments ago. So this colony repeatedly for the last 2 months keeps hauling in a purple pollen, which I just get excited about. And then this colony, which usually gives me a lot more pollen, is primarily a yellow-orange flower source, which right now would probably be goldenrod, I would think. And a lot of, unless I sent that purple one into a lab, I'm not sure which tree or flower it's bringing it off of. I really don't know. But having a wide spectrum is important. So what I do is I kind of let the ants crawl off it, and then I'm going to put this right in the freezer in 5 minutes. I also dehydrate pollen, which fresh weight dehydrated, 2 pounds becomes 1. So that's 1 pound dry. Now, one thing about eating pollen, I always mention this to people, half of 1%, so that's 1 in 200, are allergic to pollen. Doesn't mean you can't eat it. It means that you're obviously going to exhibit an allergenic histamine reaction. Some swelling, hives, itchy throat, itchy ears could occur. What do? You could either discontinue it completely, or you could take a very, very small amount and literally just eat 1 or 2 granules at a time. My wife is allergic, so we started her very small so that she can overcome her seasonal hay fever and allergies. So the next thing I want to talk about is how these modern traps function. So, pardon me here. During World War II, I believe it was a German beekeeper invented a pollen trap. It's just all made out of wood here with some screens in it. Now this is covered, I'm not using this one so it's covered in cobwebs, but I just want people to be able to see what it looks like. So you've got some screening on a wood box. The screens inside forces the bees through a screen, and it knocks a piece of their pollen down into the bottom of this trap, which they can't then retrieve. So it actually fits right at the ground level at the bottom of a colony, just like this. It hangs there. Very easy to make out of wood. I've installed the under the body pollen trap, and you just leave it open here so the bees will just land and fly in and do their thing. You get them used to it, and then you have to train them where to go. And to do that, you just take this piece and you move it up, and that forces the bees to go an inch lower like that. And I'm going to remove the top so you can see what they have to go through. It doesn't hurt them in any way. Basically, they now have to enter through these holes here. And they can't crawl down. While they're flying through here, pollen falls down through into the basket, which I'm going to pull out in a second. And then they just go up. So it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't stress them. They don't really care. The odd piece of pollen falls off their leg, and here's where it goes. Into a tray. So this is a side mounted tray, which I'm in the habit of always using a spar resinous varathane on it just to protect it.
And that's where all the pollen goes.
Yeah, and all the pollen goes there. So now you can see how 5 minutes ago where I just pulled out an in-use tray. Now there's two sources that I'm aware of to purchase these traps. This specific one that you're looking at here was invented by an Ontario beekeeper, and they're for sale at Dancing Bee Apiaries, owned by Todd in Port Hope. And it's an excellent style, excellent model, and they're under $100 Canadian, or somewhere around $100 Canadian. If you jump up to 150 Canadian, you can get the original American-owned one. The original concept was developed by a gentleman in upstate New York. I forget his name at the moment. I'm a supplier of his what's called Sundance pollen trap. I believe they're the best in the world on the market.